Avery, whose show is this? And we're live. Welcome, everybody, here to the Lakers Lounge podcast. I'm Anthony Irwin, Senior Lakers Insider and lead Lakers content creator for Offside. And today on the show, we're going to be answering your guys' questions. Obviously, the Lakers played last night, which means there was no mailbag yesterday. The Lakers, I believe, play again tomorrow, which means obviously we'll do a post-game show there. Let me just see something really quick. The Lakers play, they play at home tomorrow against the Pistons. So I'll be writing solo to react to that game. Then Wednesday might have a guest lined up for that one, which means today was really only the only opportunity to dive into the mailbag here. We have an iTunes question. I've stopped asking Twitter for questions because frankly, it's just better to have them off to the side here on the screen so that I can kind of react to them in the moment and not be like, well, here's this, looking over here for this question and then looking over here for this question. It just becomes like an episode of the Brady Bunch. And it just kind of becomes, I believe, distracting for you guys. So now I'm only going to be looking off to the side here for your guys' comments as they pop up and answering questions as they pop up. And we'll get out of here as soon as we run out of questions. So without any further ado, a quick reminder, please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. If you guys are tuned in on Twitter, head on over to youtube.com/@LakersLounge to find the show there. If you guys are listening to this in the morning via podcast, please hit subscribe wherever it is that you get your pods, preferably on Odyssey. But you know what? Wherever you get them, all counts the same. So wherever you're comfortable with it, wherever you prefer to get your pods, do your thing. And then, before I even dive into the questions, there was a topic of conversation that I wanted to broach with you guys. See if you guys stand roughly where I stand on it as well. And that is the All-Star game voting results that just came. We got the first return on those voting results. And I thought they were kind of interesting. So I'll pull those up at some point here and we can kind of react to some of the list here. Luka got a ton of support. LeBron and Austin, while explicable for a couple of reasons, didn't get as much, I guess, support as I would have thought. So we'll talk a little bit about that and then dive into your guys' questions. All right. So the returns come in and it is, all right. It's, a good thing that Luka showed up the way that he did. Here's the returns here, the bottom of the list, which doesn't really matter much anyway. Got cut off here, but I guess I can remove this. So we'll go ahead and put this off to the side. All right. There's your voting results. And you have Luka at the top outright, right? He got the most votes of any player, just out scratching Giannis, who came in at 1.2 million. Luka came in at about 1.25. Then you look down the list and you have Jokic second. All right, that makes some sense. Steph, all right, yeah, he's been good this year. Him coming in at third, he's always a really popular player. That makes some sense. This is just in the West, by the way. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, I would have expected him to be a little higher, but there were like 5 people in OKC, so I get it. Victor Wembanyama, same problem. Anthony Edwards, Minnesota's season so far has been pretty meh, so I kind of understand how low he falls on this list. Denny Advia was a surprise addition here. He got just over 600,000 votes. Portland has had a pretty good season, I guess, by Portland Trailblazer seasons go. That return kind of surprised me a little bit. Kevin Durant with Houston, I would have thought that his new fan base would show out and support him, even if it's his like 5th new fan base. And then finally, At ninth in the West, you arrive at LeBron at 536,000 votes. And then I guess not right behind him, bit of a gap in terms of total votes. Austin shows up 10th in the West with just over 400,000 votes. That would put, let's see, so you have Luka, Giannis, Jokic, Maxey, Steph, Brunson, Shea, Cade, Wemby, Donovan. Yeah, he's outside. Both players are outside the top 10 in overall votes. And this does eventually get broken down into international players and American players, so that's going to change things a little bit as well. Not really sure how they're going to factor all of that together, but I don't know. Like I kind of thought that Austin's having a really good season. Kind of surprised that he is on this list so far down. Being that he's kind of a homegrown talent, and seeing as you have the Lakers as this like, sorry, I'm just doing this live. Nope, wrong one. There we go. But like it kind of surprised me that Austin being homegrown talent, undrafted rookie or undrafted player back when they first acquired him. You have a 50-point near triple double that he had. He has helped the Lakers do a lot of winning. And he only receives 400,000 votes, pretty far down the West list. And then the other guy, LeBron, is LeBron bleeping James. Like you would think you would normally have him up around Steph, especially in one of his final couple or few seasons. And it's kind of surprising how far down the list he fell too. Now, Luka being at the very top doesn't really surprise me all that much. He's like even given the Lakers' recent slide, he's like a top 3 or 4 MVP candidate so far this year. So kind of figures the Lakers would show out for him. I really like Austin's return really surprised me. And I think there is a couple of explanations here, both macro and micro. Starting macro, I just don't think Lakers fans like this team very much. I think it's a team that clearly is becoming more and more and more apparently a 82 game team and not a 16 win team. And Lakers fans only really care about that latter group. Can you win 4 series and bring home a championship and not of the Emirates Cup variety? Lakers fans care about one thing and one thing only, and that is what are you going to do for us in the postseason? And I think they've grown pretty sick of a core that clearly doesn't really have it for the postseason. So I think that's kind of the overall tint that sits over the top of Luka, or not Luka, but LeBron and Austin's vote returns. And hell, even Luka for that matter, normally a Laker who is having an MVP caliber season in the way that Luka is would blow other players out of the water, and he hasn't. And I just don't know if Lakers fans are showing out in droves to vote for all of these guys because of the weird kind of up and down season that they've had. And then, when we talk about macro, micro, right? So the macro is I just don't know how much Lakers fans love this team. And then micro, when you look at each of those individual players, LeBron and Austin, those two like fan bases have kind of been at each other's throat all year, where you have Rich Paul kind of sort of hinting at Austin maybe should go to the bench. And then you have people who root a little bit more for Austin saying that LeBron came back and put Austin in a corner, even though I would probably say neither hardline stance on either end of the spectrum, get very close to the matter at hand. I think what this comes down to is a sense of frustration with different parties that is showing up in the results in all-star voting for guys who like don't have anything to say about the people who Lakers fans are actually frustrated with. I think Lakers fans are most frustrated with Rob Pelinka, who once again, like, yes, he had a pretty good offseason if you look at everything in a vacuum, but that's just not how basketball teams are put together. And had he made the Wiggins trade back in the summer and this starting group made more sense, and you had a win against an elite caliber NBA team, or at the very least didn't get blown out every time you play any team with any sense of any semblance of athleticism and length and the types of teams that you're going to play in the postseason. Like if the Lakers looked even okay against those teams, maybe Lakers fans would lend their support a little bit more than they did in these first, voting results. And it's a bit of a bummer that you have now Luka again, he's top of the list. So like I'm sure he isn't exactly, and I don't know how much LeBron or Austin care about this either for that matter. But in terms of like where everybody falls in the list and the number of votes that actually came in from the biggest fan base in the sport, it sucks that it kind of has to be this reflection of Rob Pelinka and a front office that just hasn't put a serious roster around LeBron and AD or LeBron and Luka or LeBron, Luka and Austin. Like they haven't found a way to surround those guys with the kind of talent that the Laker fan base would actually believe in. And it's kind of interesting. I'll take you guys behind the curtain a little bit here too. And I'm sure all of the shows are kind of feeling this as well. But my numbers recently, even factoring in the fact that like I didn't record over the course of like the Christmas break and I took a couple days off here and there, um, my numbers have dipped and we're dipping going into Christmas. Um, they aren't where they would normally be for a Lakers team that sits at whatever it is, 20-10. Like normally a Lakers team that's at 20-10, there'd be a real swell of podcast listens, of YouTube views, of engagement on Twitter and stuff like that. But I think for the most part, Lakers fans are just kind of reluctant to really throw their weight behind this team, whether it means in this regard and in show returns and show stats or voting results for the All-Star game or whatever, or even engagement on the Lakers official account. Like I just think Lakers fans are just kind of sitting here like, yeah, let's wait this one out. Will you come back to us when you actually have like a two-way wing? That fair? And I can't really blame Lakers fans for that. I obviously wish selfishly that you would continue to tune into the show, or that everybody would continue to tune into the show. But it's hard for me to really like. I'm a Vikings fan, and I entered this season pretty apathetic because I was like, it's a rookie quarterback, and he's like, eventually he's going to have to knock off Josh Allen and Matthew Stafford and apparently now Drake May. But like, JJ McCarthy was basically this kind of wet rag, this wet blanket that was thrown on top of what is otherwise a fairly exciting Minnesota Vikings roster. And I found that over the course of the season, I was pretty apathetic about it. I didn't listen to a single Vikings podcast over the course of the season. I didn't, tune in. Like there were entire Vikings games that I just missed. And there were only like 17 of those over the course of the season. And that's what happens when eventually an organization kind of forces apathy on its fan base. And I think that's kind of where Rob Pelinka has left us, is essentially, until this roster is the kind that or is built in a way that can viably compete in the postseason or viably compete even in the regular season against better teams, Lakers fans aren't going to give a fuck. And I can't really blame you. I really can't. I wish that it wasn't the case. I wish that this roster made more sense. And I hate that, like, right now, Paul Pierce is basically running a victory lap around the fact that LeBron came back and the Lakers have looked worse with him back than with him there. The reason that they look worse with LeBron back versus when he was out is A, I think the schedule got a little tougher. B, because the starting lineup doesn't make any sense. You have everybody guarding out of position. Every single player outside of DeAndre Ayton is guarding out of position. And by the way, you could maybe make the case that even Ayton is guarding out of position because he's being asked to clean up all the messes from everybody else who's guarding out of position. So yeah, I found I was actually really looking forward to these all-star returns, not necessarily for like hoping that this would be the return and that it would allow me to make this point. I wanted to see Lakers fans show out and really support. Austin is somebody I'm always going to kind of pull for because of the story that he has, and it sucks that this injury and the way that the season has gone is probably going to cost him an all-star opportunity. It's going to kind of come down to the coaches, and with him missing a big chunk of time before we get to when those coaches make that decision, it was a bummer to see how low on the list Austin sits, even while, as I just said a second ago, I completely understand how Lakers fans feel about this Lakers team. All right. With all that out of the way, let's go ahead and dive on into your guys' questions and comments and stuff like that. I see that we have a few here in the chat, so I'll get to those. Thank you for those. And then I will go ahead and also start with a question that we have here from the iTunes mailbag from Viva Exceptionalism, writing, Anthony, Merry Christmas to your family. Your perspective, humor, and humanity are why I've loved the show since Team Tank, maybe earlier. I just don't remember. I don't think there was very early. It gets much earlier than Team Tank. Jen, Avery, and Miles are very fortunate. Thank you very much. In the past couple of the shows, you've talked about LeBron taking a cut or a discount. I'm using air quotes because he's using quotation marks next year. Is that the right prism to look through? At the end of this season, the Lakers won't be obligated to LeBron to offer any contract at all. And if we look to the Dodgers, we see that Mark Walter does not overpay stars past their prime. Kershaw and Justin Turner, for example, he values them and pays them their worth. And at this time in an NBA where pace is increasing and speed and athleticism are critical, LeBron just can't keep up defensively and has already missed 16 games this season and will likely miss more. So what is he worth? Certainly not $50 million a year. Probably not more than $25 to $30 million max, and maybe not even that. So I think Mark Walter's influence will be felt here. Thoughts? Well, yes and no. I mean, obviously, the owner is always going to matter, right? Like the owner is always going to have his thoughts on what he is willing to sign, what kind of check he's willing to sign his name on. But I would say that, like, Kershaw, I think he did. There is a point to be made here about like what Kershaw got compared to what his market might have been. And I still think Kersh was probably paid slightly above market value, just given that availability. Now, he was actually pretty damn good when he was available. He just didn't pitch a whole bunch those last couple of years. And so I do think, like, whatever the opposite of a hometown discount was, like, I think Mark Walter and the Dodgers basically never wanted it to get to a point, especially in a not cap league. They never wanted it to get to a point with Kershaw where it was an ugly negotiation that kind of leaked out into the public. That was something that they really wanted to avoid at all costs. And for the most part, they were able to do just that. Now, as far as, kind of trying to compare this to the Lakers and to LeBron's next contract, I think an interesting version of the question that has to be taken into account at the same time is, what does LeBron consider a discount? Is LeBron going to sit there and be like, yeah, I missed this many games and I missed this much time, and yeah, my defense isn't really where it probably needed to be, and all of my counting stats have taken a bit of a dip. Um, so like I'm fine making 25-30 million dollars less than I did last year. I don't know. He might, but I somehow doubt it, given that LeBron has his eyes set and his sights set on NBA ownership and will thus need to maximize his earning potential every chance he can possibly get. And again, when he left the Miami Heat, he made it crystal clear to everybody else, hey, those days of me taking pay cuts, that's it. No more of that. And I can't quite blame him either. Why should owners benefit from inherent pressure on athletes for them to take less in order for owners to be able to afford under salary cap structures to keep teams together? That feels like an inherently unfair situation and relationship between players and owners. So, like, while we might say a player who misses that much as much time as LeBron has missed, and a player who has struggled defensively the way that he has, when that's basically the thing that he has needed to be good at in order to make the Lakers operate at the level that they need to operate. While we might feel a certain way about what LeBron should make, he's going to feel very differently. And how that's going to go is going to be really interesting, because, this last year the Lakers could have told him, "Hey, we're going to rip up your contract and we're going to offer you, another year on top of it." Rather than do that, and rather than even enter negotiations with LeBron and his camp, they were basically like, "Your call, dude. What are you thinking here?" And LeBron and his camp kind of felt that approach from the Lakers and opted into the contract. And then after they opted into the contract, released a statement calling into question the Lakers' viability as a contender right now. Um, and so, yeah, it's going to be, the thing probably to pay attention to. I also, frankly, wonder, with LeBron's vote tally sitting where it does, if we get a few more whispers of retirement after this season, because I hate that this is the phrase that comes to mind, but I do kind of wonder if LeBron kind of regrets not announcing a retirement tour before the season. Because if he had, right, and I do kind of wonder if, like, the injury that he had going into the season played a part in him, not wanting to retire after a season where he missed that much time right at the get. But I do kind of wonder if LeBron regrets a little bit not announcing that retirement tour, not basically allowing that to be the story to the season, when now the story to the season, that if you're just looking at the box score, is the Lakers were playing one way when LeBron was out. LeBron comes back and now they look a different kind of way. Um, I think that's kind of disingenuous to look at it that way. And Paul Pierce has his reasons to be disingenuous about LeBron, but and LeBron on the Lakers for that matter. But yeah, like the voting results on LeBron here were really pretty shocking. I'd never thought I would see a day when LeBron bleeping James getting this close to the end of his career would be outside the top 10 in vote getters for the All-Star game. That really surprised me. And I really wonder uh, how that landed on LeBron's doorstep and Clutch's, radar as a group, right? Like that's pretty wild. That's legitimately not getting more votes than Denny Avdia. That's crazy. Absolutely nuts. All right. Let's go ahead and dive into some of your guys' questions and comments from the chat. I'll scroll up to the very top. Daniel Barry saying happy Monday, everyone. Man, I don't know what it is. It's that Monday after a holiday weekend. Like even my kids are dragging ass today. My son, I put him down for a nap. I had to go to Costco really quick, and I'm gonna have to go back because my dumbass didn't add stuff to the list. But um, like I got back from Costco, and I told Miles, "All right, kiddo, time for a nap," and he was just like, "A nap," and normally he's like starts crying and stomping and all this stuff. He's like, "Nah, nap. Yeah, that sounds right." And he like lie down on his bed. I literally walked into the living room, poured myself, a thing of water, and by the time my water was filled, I looked onto the little ring camera that we have in his room, and he was zonked out. So that post Christmas Monday is a brutal one. I don't know if you guys are feeling it too. All right. Tyler Nizinski writing, in your opinion, is there any trade the Lakers can make that's not Giannis, make them a title contender and be able to withstand OKC in a 7-game series? A trade? No, not realistically speaking. Uh, I think the Lakers are probably at least a couple, maybe even a few moves away. Now, this is where we get into to semantics a little bit here, right? You could probably go, like, for me, one thing I would like to see the Lakers do, because I think the buyout market is going to be pretty fruitful again. But I would like to see the Lakers kind of scrap. Like, I don't think you need Kobe Buffkin and Nick Smith Jr. As your two-way guys. So I would like for the Lakers to kind of let Kobe go and see if you can go out and get a wing type player who fits that group a little bit better. I guess now I'm thinking about it. Oh no, Buffkin is just on the G League team. I think Magnon is still their two-way guy. So like Drew Timmy, I know that he was putting up numbers in the G League, and there are a few things that Lakers fans get more excited about than a center putting up numbers in the G League. But to me, I always thought Koloko made a lot more sense as a two-way center who steps in the event that you don't have Jackson and or you don't have DeAndre Ayton. Um, but I would like the Drew Timmy is a guy that kind of leans offensive minded. Kobe Buffkin more of a scoring first guard as well. This team just needs more dogs on it. Like the JJ Redick said that after practice today that the Lakers have a lot of guys who do like one thing well. And by the way, that's another time where JJ Redick mentions roster construction. That's like 3 in the last week. Now this one, the tone was a little different because he was talking about Nick Smith Jr.'s role and opportunity on the roster as it currently exists. And he was saying how Nick Smith Jr. needs to get a little bit better on defense in order to crack that rotation to a greater extent than he has. But like he once again, he kind of talked about the imbalance on this roster where you have offensive minded players and you have defensive minded players, and you don't really have guys who can do both. And I that does lead me to believe that the Lakers really take a hard look at one of these two-way wings So long as the price gets into a price range that the Lakers can literally meet. Not saying, where they would be comfortable or uncomfortable, meeting a price, but like can literally they'll have one first rounder, and as it stands right now, one second rounder that they can trade. Um, and it, I do think at some point with Luka kind of having some thoughts on the roster, and with JJ having his thoughts on the roster, and with Lakers fans not exactly showing out to support guys who should otherwise get support, for the All-Star voting. I do kind of think that the Lakers front office has to start to feel this apathy that is kind of set in over this roster they have built. And look, like it's like I've said all along, I thought they did a good job in the offseason given the parameters that they were working with. The problem is the teams that they're contending against aren't working with those same parameters. They don't care as much about having as clean a book as they could possibly have next year. They don't care about holding on to whatever first round draft capital that they can, um, just in case Giannis comes available. Like if OKC felt that a trade came along that they should trade a first for, they would do it. If Houston, if Denver, if Golden State, if all of these teams that the Lakers are competing for a championship with this year, if those teams felt that there was a move that would give themselves a better shot at a championship this year, they would pull the trigger on it. Whereas the Lakers are kind of sitting here like, well, yeah, but we might be on Giannis's list. And as such, what can you do? And what can you do is you could build a roster. You could build a better roster. We have a starred comment, which means I get to play the most important clip on the show. Always. All right. So the starred comment here comes from Drip Show Shop, who writes, and thank you for the starred comment. Rob is gone. Mark Walter asks you to save the season. What do you do? All right. Well, I was kind of making this point and I got sidetracked. So thank you for bringing me back to the focus here. I would make a trade. Like I would trade Rui and whatever expiring money that I need to, and whatever draft compensation that I need to go out and get one of the wings that we're talking about here. The Andrew Wiggins, the Herb Jones, I don't think that they can get the other wing on that team whose name eludes me. But like if they could, I'd be open to that. MPJ, I know MPJ isn't very popular here, but MPJ is like an actualized version of Rui. Like as much as everybody talks about like the theoretical spacing that Rui provides, MPJ is like actual spacing that he could provide. And that would be kind of nice. But I would go out and I would trade, whatever combination of contracts and talent that I would need to go out and get that two-way wing. I would include whatever draft compensation, like again, whatever wing you're thinking of, go trade for that guy. And I would have two kind of subcategoried priorities to take into account here. One, I would like to send out more players than I bring back, which is kind of inherent to the task at hand because most of these wings are kind of expensive. And two, I would try to send out more money than I bring back in, so that between the opened roster spot and the uh, and the money that I send out, between those two, opportunities that I create for myself, I can now participate in the buyout market. So rather than, my like 14th guy being Dalton Connect, it could be like Chris Middleton, Or rather than my 14th guy being like Bronny James, it would be, uh, or rather than my 14th guy being, I don't know who's the like Theoro or whatever, it would be CJ McCollum or something like that. One of these players who, that can actually serve a purpose on a team trying to win right now. And look, like I texted this to somebody earlier today, and I've had a few people because Simmons raised this as a possibility on his most recent pod. I don't. I can normally kind of tell if this is Simmons kind of like throwing out an idea, uh, based on stuff he's hearing, or if this is just an idea. I couldn't really tell this time, but he kind of threw out the idea of LeBron for Jimmy Butler. And now LeBron has been reticent to be traded to Golden State. Um, I don't think he's all that interested in going and being on Steph's team. But it did kind of make me my wheels started turning a little bit, and it made some other wheels around the league turn a little bit as well. Where I've had a few people kind of ask, like, "Hey, have you thought about this? Like, what would this look even in the trade machine?" So I'm just gonna pull up on Fanspo, even though Spotrac is probably a little bit better. It's easier for me. So LeBron goes to Golden State, and you have Jimmy Butler coming back to the Lakers. Now LeBron makes $52.6 million. Jimmy Butler makes 54.1 million bucks. You have to include Bronny because I would imagine LeBron is going to want Bronny on the team with him. So you include Bronny, and that gets you to an outgoing amount of money being $54.5 million for LeBron, and Bronny going out, and Jimmy Butler brings you back 54.1 million. That doesn't quite do it. So let's see. What do you need to do? Hard cap. So I would need to bring back 191,000 less dollars to make that trade work. So yeah, I don't know. It would still be really tricky because of the cap, you know, restrictions on both teams. Um, the thing that I kind of laughed at because I saw this kind of making the rounds is how, like, anytime the Lakers trade for anybody, it's always like Herb Jones is going to cost 5 first rounders and stuff like that. Meanwhile, the Lakers are sending out LeBron, who's a better basketball player than Jimmy Butler, on a better contract than Jimmy Butler's. And somehow there's never any mention of like what additional assets Golden State would have to include in the contract. Because, like, look, if the Lakers were to go to LeBron, if Rob Pelinka was to go to LeBron and been like, all right, man, the Luka U experiment isn't going exactly as we would like it to go. Personally, by the way, quick side note that I think needs to be mentioned here. I would much rather bring in the two-way wing that can help the Luka LeBron experiment work before I trade LeBron. Okay. So I want to be clear on that. But let's say, Rob thinks that's too hard and just wants to be out of the clutch business in one fell swoop and goes, all right, LeBron, what do you think about going to Golden State? What do you think about you and Bronny going to Golden State? It's still in California. It's a relatively quick commute if you want to be close to your family still. You get to play with Steph. You get to do, you've been wanting to play with Steph for a while now. What do you think? And if LeBron is open to it, remember LeBron has that no trade clause, so LeBron needs to be open to this. If LeBron is open to it, you say, all right, you, Bronny, whatever other contract that we need to send up there, you guys go up to Golden State. Golden State sends back Jimmy Butler, DeAnthony Melton, and a first, or even like a swap or, I would say like a heavily protected first, the kind of first that the Lakers would be able to include in a trade down the road, right? Um, what do you think? And you see where the conversation goes from there. And now again, my first priority would be get the wing, be active in the buyout market, get some balance on this roster so that you don't have like an offensive player and a defensive player. You have an offensive and defensive player. And you see what the team looks like from there. If that doesn't work, and if LeBron continues to, and Rich Paul continues to just kind of subtweet the way that he has so far this season, you say, all right, fine. What do you want, man? What do you want? Where do you want to go? How can we work with you? How can we all how can we all clean our hands of this situation and move on with our lives? And, Jimmy Butler and DeAnthony Melton, and a first for LeBron and Bronny and maybe Dalton or something like that. There are worse outcomes. The next question here comes from BDA Pink, who writes, why hasn't there been an intro press conference for the new ownership? Other teams have done it with their new owners. Yeah, that's a good question. I think I just think the Lakers are, a low profile team until they absolutely have to be. And by have to be, I mean they do more winning than they have done recently. So I think that plays a role in it. I think that ambiguity between Jeannie being a team governor and Mark Walter being the majority owner, I think that plays a role here as well. But overall, I just think you're in the middle of a season and the focus is on winning this season. And I think Mark Walter wants to see how this team looks before he attaches his like name and face to it and this organization specifically. And I kind of get it, so I think there's a few factors at play. But, first and foremost, I just think the Lakers, they aren't the number one seed in the league. They aren't like a legitimate championship contender right now. And until they are, I don't think we're going to hear from or see Rob Pelinka until he can put on that stupid little jacket and sit there and tell us how great a job he just did. Like, if he feels like things are going well, we'll see Rob Pelinka. If he doesn't think that things are going that well, then we won't see Rob Pelinka. And same goes for Jeannie Buss. And I just think they all want to stay out of the public eye until it behooves them to change that stance. Whoop. What just happened? All right, let's see. We'll go up here to the top again. Nizinski kind of following up on his previous question. If not, what would be the point of making a trade now as opposed to waiting in the offseason, where we will have a lot of cap space and more assets to work with? Well, all right. So the cap space is going to shrink, right? Because you're going to have to pay Austin. He's going to opt out of his contract, and you're going to have to pay Austin. Depending on how the rest of the season goes, you might also have to pay Rui. If you really like how the DeAndre Ayton experience went, you're going to have to pay him too. So that's going to cut into your cap space as well. And you won't have bird rights on him in the same way you will with Luka or with Rui and with Austin. There has to be some resolution to the LeBron situation. That might get kind of expensive. Marcus Smart is due to get paid as well. So the amount of cap space that the Lakers might actually have, not actually what they keep proposing it to be. Now, if you tell all of those guys, adios, we're working on getting Giannis, or at least all of those guys outside of Austin, hey, we're working on getting Giannis, then obviously that improves your flexibility. But even there, like the Lakers won't be able to, like at that point, it would have to be like a sign and trade maybe with Austin, or you trade for Giannis into your cap space, but that means you're not really sending any players back. And if you're Milwaukee, can you afford to trade Giannis for no like real players? You're also going to have only 3 first round picks to work with that are pretty far out into the future. A future that would feature Giannis and Luka potentially. Is that something that Milwaukee is going to be interested in? Yeah, I don't know. I just don't really see it. I have never really seen the Giannis plan. I have always thought that the way to build out a roster is to have 2 guys at the top of it who complement each other, and then a whole bunch of badass role players. And it's really difficult to beat to build up that roster, that kind of a roster in one off season. And oh, by the way, like you're going to be doing that again after at least Austin gets his raise, which is going to make things that much more tricky. So yeah, I'm of the opinion whatever move you can make, if you can get a two-way wing now for one first round pick, do it, because that two-way wing is always going to be valuable, whether on your team or as a trade asset. Getting that two-way wing, like you just don't really ever see a team regret having too many two-way wings on it. The closest you could get would be New York, where they had potentially an opportunity to trade for Giannis uh this summer and couldn't trade for Giannis because of how tied up their assets were in getting Mikal Bridges and in getting OG Anunoby. So okay, that's one example of it, but there's still probably the odds-on favorite to land Giannis whenever he demands a trade from Milwaukee. And all right, yeah, you haven't you would, because you had those two-way wings, you wouldn't have had Giannis maybe for the last few months. Still might get him, and you still might get him with those two-way wings still on your roster. So if I'm the Lakers, if I can get a Herb Jones, if I can get uh you know a I guess MPJ to a lesser extent, or if I can get an Andrew Wiggins, or if I can get any of these two-way impact role players, I would just do it because those guys are going to be valuable either with Luka as teammates or as trade assets for the kind of star that you're trying to make Luka Doncic's next superstar teammate. All right, let's see. Cush it out 420. This is all Robert Todd Pelinka's fault. That's Junior, Robert Todd Pelinka Jr. He's dividing the fan base and having a great time at Disney World doing it. He skipped the line to get Luka, and now he's back on the Disney streets roaming around. Yeah, I mean, like, I don't know how long we have to just sit here and wait for Rob to build a viable, balanced roster. But it's like I've been saying for years with Rob, right? Like it's really as simple as we are very simple beings, we humans, in that we only make meaningful changes to our character, to our personality, to our habits. We only make real changes to those things if we are presented with accountability, if we are presented with stakes and loss, if we don't, change things up a bit. And, I've written about it in the past. I wrote about it for Substack, right? I've dealt with um, my demons and specifically as it pertains to alcohol. And there are people in my life who have been like, dude, I can't keep watching you do this to yourself. Either you make some changes um and really live a healthier lifestyle and be somebody that we want to be around by way of, because I feel like I'm an okay person to be around if I'm sober or not. But they, basically said, hey, like this is what this could look like if you continue on down this path of drinking the way that I was, however many years ago. And when I was presented with those stakes and when I was presented with that potential loss, it was like, all right, let's get our shit together. And eventually, I sit here in front of you. I think a very improved man, who has those things much more under control. And like that accountability and that potential loss, that I was presented with at the time, that was enough for me to say, all right, I don't want to suffer those losses. I need to take better care of myself, not just for myself, but for everybody around me. And I did that. And with Rob, like, he's always been a made man. Jeannie does not want to fire Rob Pelinka. Period. End of sentence. And so long as Rob has known that, he's been able to kind of, what's the phrase, move like Pac out there, right? Like, he's been able to just kind of convince Jeannie that the organization can't run without him. And meanwhile, it can run without the likes of Jerry West or Phil Jackson or Magic Johnson, or without an assistant GM. Without, he convinced Jeannie to fire Jesse and Joey Buss. Like, he is basically assumed and stepped into every power vacuum that has been created in his during his time there. And yeah, it's like, if this guy only continues to gain power while he kind of flubs around this roster, then what's the actual reason that he's going to make any change? So now we'll see if Mark Walter is the reason that you finally start to get that feeling of change in approach from Rob Pelinka. But if he starts to feel as if, I'm still a made man, Jeannie's not going anywhere, then what is the reason to make any real change to the way that he has run things, while he kind of sort of wasted the LeBron AD era and he's off to kind of a rough start in the Luka one? Let's see. Let's go back up to the top here. Sorry about that. Lost my spot. Revive Gamer HD. I'm going to start ripping through some of these a little faster. So, because we were all tired of a team that we know isn't competing and a GM who won't do anything to solve it and keeps kicking the can down the road. Yeah, that's in reference to the point I made earlier about the All-Star voting returns. Adam, I'm just guessing YouTube changed the way that a lot of their names are put together. So I'm just going to start saying just your first name. So Adam writes, if the Lakers get rid of Gabe, it would open up a spot for Nick Smith Jr. and it would allow to put Kobe Buffkin on a two-way. Buffkin just had a 41.9 assist game in the G League. Rob is stupid. I don't think Rob is stupid. I think he lacks. Ooh, man. How do I want to phrase this? I don't think Rob is stupid, but I do think he lacks a basketball ideology that extends beyond whatever keeps him employed. So if he thinks that Jeannie Buss wants a certain type of player, then he's going to bring in that type of player that he can say, well, technically, Jeannie, this is kind of your idea too, and continue on that path. So like, yeah, that's my read of Rob. Now, as far as like opening up a spot for Kobe Buffkin, I just don't need another combo guard. I'm good on that. Like, yeah, it'd be nice to be able to, get him onto the roster and be able to trade him maybe for something if he does show out a little bit. But like Nick Smith Jr., Kobe Buffkin, Spider-Man meme. So I don't need two of those guys. One guy, getting more minutes with the parent team, and then the other guy getting a two-way spot that Kobe just was promoted out of. Give me more wings. Like, I was watching the Clippers the other day, and they have like some good young wings. And yeah, their season has kind of turned around recently because Kawhi looks as great as he does, and Brook Lopez turns out isn't washed, but give me wings. Like, you look at that roster and you have, you have your offensive creators, your engines and stuff like that, but you also have a shit ton of athleticism and physicality and all these things that the Lakers just haven't had basically since the 1920 team. And you look at the guy at the helm for all those things and his basketball ideologies and the lack thereof, and you could see how you arrive here. But like, give me more dude theros. Give me more chances on guys like that who might pop. And if it means eventually you need to scale that back and maybe index a little higher uh on scoring and shooting and stuff like that, then okay, you make that adjustment when it comes time to it. But the Lakers have just been doubling and tripling and quadrupling and quintupling and all of the other tuplings of scoring and shooting and all the stuff, and it's just, I'm done. I'm sick of being a soft team. I am sick of the Lakers teams going into games with the Lakers and them just knowing that if we poke them in the chest, they're going to wilt a little bit. I'm sick of that nonsense, man. As I said earlier, I'm a Vikings fan. And there are few things that bring me more joy than watching a receiver go across the middle of the Vikings linebackers and safeties and stuff like that. And you see them like go through the middle and get those alligator arms. And that's because for basically most of my adult life, the Vikings have had this kind of big, physical, mean defense. And like, as such, you have that reputation of being tough. Means you that's the that's always the funny thing, right? Once you get the reputation of being stuff, you stop having to need to fight. And meanwhile, like, when you have the reputation of being soft, you're the guy that everybody wants to beat up because they know that they can. So I'm sick of the Lakers being that guy that everybody just knows they can beat up because the Lakers don't have the physicality or the athletes to do anything about it. Man, we have a lot. Let's keep on going. Um, oh, this is interesting. Would we feel better if Rob came out and definitively said we were punting the season? No, I don't think fans would have handled it very well if you entered a season with Luka and LeBron and Austin on the contracts that they're on. Oh, by the way, eventually Luka's extension is going to kick in, and that's going to eat up a significant, an even more significant amount of your cap. But like, yeah, you can't punt Luka seasons. You can't punt seasons where Luka is entering his prime. You do not do that. If you're punting a Luka season, then freaking trade Luka. Get whatever assets you possibly can, refill the coffers and rebuild in a way to where, like, next time you do get a Luka type player, you can actually surround him with the talent that helps that player reach the heights that they are looking for or that they're trying to attain. But yeah, you can't punt on seasons. And by the way, like, once you establish that you're willing to punt on a season with Luka, that just kind of needles its way into the fabric of your culture. And I just think, like, over the years, I've used this analogy plenty, where when I was growing up, the Lakers were bona fide 24 karat gold bricks, right? Where right down to you could cut that brick open, every layer is going to be the purest gold, right? That's what it was when I was growing up, when you had, you know, Phil Jackson as the head coach and Jerry West was still in the front office, and you had Mitch Kupchak as this assistant GM, and you had Kobe, and you had, at one point, you had Shaq, and every level of the Lakers was actually exceptional. And over the years, you've had this like rot set in, and over the years, it's gone from a solid gold brick to this piece of lead that they continue to try to plaster gold over the top of and present as the solid gold brick that it used to be. And, you know, until that is addressed, almost none of this other stuff matters. Well, I'll continue to talk about it because I think there's still ways to make it work. But really, like the reason I'm so excited about the Mark Walter era is because of the possibility that 5 whatever years from now, you'll be able to look at the Lakers as a solid gold brick again, right? You look at the Dodgers organization, that is a solid gold brick, right? Where you have Mark Walter at the very top, and you have Stan Kasten, and you have Andrew Friedman, and you have Farhan Zaidi, and you have all these people who are working to make sure that the Dodgers hold themselves to the highest standard. And you compare that to how the Lakers have basically operated however many years under Jeannie Buss, or even dating before, predating Jeannie Buss, right? With Jim Buss before, and then Jeannie Buss, and it's just been this, it's become this piece of lead, and the some gold paint over the top of it. And that's not how you win and operate at the levels that we expect the Lakers to operate. Um, let's see. Dodger Blue, is there now a disconnect with Jeannie and LeBron? Disconnect? I don't know that I would go that far. But I do think everybody is kind of ready to move on, right? Like, we've all had relationships over the course of our lives, right? Like, it's a like I've been with Jen since high school. So, it's a little tough to compare, but, like, I had relationships that I was in when I was in high school before I met Jen, and you start the relationship, and it's exciting, and it's that person is everything you've ever wanted in a person, and you think, "Oh my god, this is the one," and then eventually you kinda see that red flag, and this thing, and remember, I was in high school, so um, but over the course of people's lives, right? Like, you have in for most people's lives, you have these relationships to where, you know, at that stage of your life, you thought that this was the person for you, and you don't enter a relationship thinking about the end. Um, but all relationships end in one way or another. And, fortunately for me and Jen, we have been lucky enough to find each other, and we are that that one annoying couple that has been together since high school and knows everything about each other. Like, I got lucky in that sense. But for I'm also realistic, and I have plenty of friends who I've watched, and they start with those relationships and it just doesn't necessarily work out. And by the time you get to the end of it, it's not pretty. And yeah, I think LeBron and Jeannie are nearing the end of their relationship, working relationship, obviously, with each other. And I think we are now starting to see the more outward annoyance with some of what they consider red flags with each other, and that process is never very pretty by the end of it. Now, I think that's just where we're at with both of those parties. um let's see. Bashir writes, do you think there's a realistic chance Rui gets benched? If it didn't happen after that Houston game, I don't think it will, period. I mean, it's like I said, I tweeted this the other day where, like, basically, if you fit not LeBron, but JJ Redick's, kind of basketball principles, and really the only one that matters the most is spacing. If you fit those principles, he is going to find minutes for you. If you don't, he's going to find excuses to not play you. And with Rui, Rui is one of the better shooters by percentage in the league. And as such, JJ Redick is going to find every reason to keep him in the starting group. I would have thought with this recent stretch where they've, lost games, that we would have gotten a tweak, and we haven't. So it might just be that until Rui is traded, and look, this is where good front offices step in and save their coaches for themselves, because you cannot continue to start Rui with LeBron, with Austin, and with Luka. You just can't. That roster, or that starting group is devastating to the Lakers' chances of winning games against good teams. And a good front office sometimes will step in and be like, "Hey, we traded Rui. We needed a player who fits into, that group a little bit better than Rui does, checks more boxes than you have double and triple checked at this point. Like, we made a change here, and it's on the coach at that point to figure out a way to make it work. And that's what I would kind of like to see eventually here from this Lakers front office of like, look, hand on the shoulder. Look, I'm sorry. We traded Rui. No, no. JJ, no, don't cry in public. But we traded him, and that's what needs to happen. Either that, or JJ needs to wake up and stop ignoring the data. It's funny. He actually has a much lower bar for, what is a decent data sample. Where he was like, yeah, usually like 250 possessions is normally a pretty good, or minutes or whatever is a good sample size for me. I'm like, dang, that's even less than I thought. Okay, that's interesting. Then what the hell are you waiting for on Rui? Like, what are we doing now? But here we are. All right. That is going to do it here for this episode. Miles is waking up of the Lakers Lounge. Thank you, everybody, for your questions. Thank you for the super chats. Thank you for the chats. Please hit that subscribe button. Please hit that like button. And if you check out any more of my stuff between now and tomorrow's game, cool. But if not, have a great rest of your day. Make somebody else's. And I will talk to you guys after tomorrow's game. Hopefully, talk about the Lakers beating a big physical team. Fingers crossed. Have a good one, everybody.